Okay, it's just going to try and explain how starter motors work right now, just really quickly. Here's the motor part of it. You've got a motor and a solenoid. Right now I have the solenoid apart from the motor. Usually the motor and the solenoid are attached together, and like that. Right now I've got this apart. Essentially, the power for the motor is supplied through the chassis of the motor. So usually there's a bolt on the end here, which just looks like that, and usually connects to the chassis or of the vehicle. And there's of course two bolt holes here, and that's also an electrical connection as well. So essentially the two connections for the motor are the chassis and this little copper thing. It looks different on every starter motor, and this happens to be a copper kind of a strap. On this one here, it's kind of like you can see it's kind of like a bolt that goes into the motor. Okay, so that basically, so when you're starting your car, somehow you have to get the power into here, and that's where the solenoid comes in. This is called a Bendix gear, and so you can see there's some teeth in there, and they move forward and backwards, and they spin at the same time. And the idea is that the teeth are kind of, I don't know if you can see, they're kind of rounded at the end there, so they'll slip onto the flywheel. This little plunger here gets sucked out. It gets sucked out like that by the solenoid. So that little plunger fits down into here, and you can see that there, if you could get that camera to focus on that, that there's a little button down in there. And right now I have my voltmeter connected to these two larger lugs here. Essentially, when you energize this solenoid via one of these smaller lugs on the side of the solenoid, what it does is it sucks that plunger, sucks that back. This plunger hits that little button down in there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this button, and you're going to see it's going to make a connection on my voltmeter if you listen. So I'm pushing. I'm just going to push down inside there on that little button, and I've just got my voltmeter hooked up here, like so. Oh, came off. Let me just rehook that. Okay. Okay, I'm going to push down on that, and you see it makes a connection. Now, I'm not really super impressed with that connection actually, but which I think that's the problem with this starter motor, but it's supposed to make a good connection. So the power runs from here, so your positive battery terminal hooks onto here. So when you energize that solenoid, it sucks the plunger back. The plunger pushes on that button, which makes the power go from here into here. This lug here hooks onto this copper strap, which energizes the motor. So that's how that works. And then there's also this spring. The spring that fits in here, goes around the plunger, and what happens there is that when you de-energize this solenoid, like, you know, when you turn the key, your ignition switch energizes this lug here. When you turn the key forward, it sucks that plunger in, and then when you let go of the key and it comes back a little bit, it de-energizes this, the solenoid, and then this spring here forces this plunger back forward, which disengages the gear from the flywheel. So that's how that works. Pretty clever, actually. This is a AC Delco motor, starter motor for my 6.2 diesel out of my van. Now this starter motor is, I don't know, I've had so many of these starters and they just remanufacture starters and they seem to be garbage. I wouldn't recommend spending money on these. You're better off to, this is the fourth one that I've had. You're better off to spend, you know, the big bucks on a brand new motor. I also am not really impressed with some of the linkages here. It just seems just rather poorly done. Seems kind of rattly and just doesn't seem very I don't know, there's something about that I don't like. I'm not sure what it is, but anyways, not quite sure what's wrong with this guy, but I think it could potentially be this, but we'll figure it out. Anyways, that's how a starter motor works, and hopefully that will help you out, understand what wires go where and why, and so on and so forth. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed that video, and talk to you soon.